So I hope everybody can see my screen. I'm going to create an application now.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay. So when you, by default, only the core library is usually checked in Graphite. But if you want any other library, you can use it. So let's do a couple of things today. We'll upload a file. We'll also draw a chart. So, and you can do other stuff like email. You can have a calendar control and things. You can do reporting, so reporting of documents. And very quickly, if you want to learn how to do all of that, you have a couple of options here. You have the Knowledge Center, where you can go to references, and there are a bunch of documents here, like for reporting. You have this, and so on and so forth. And also, you have sample projects that will tell you how to use, show you how to use. You can just download the sample project, open it in Graphite, and take a look at it. So anyway, coming back here, we're going to take a look at these two libraries. So when I push next, it's going to show all. Now you see a new tab. There are two new entities that are brought in. I click OK, and there's your new project. It's got some more web services that you can call, and you know, a couple of new entities, and of course the original ones. So let's try and do upload a file now. So I'm going to create a new we'll call it sample items or something like that. And in sample items, we'll create a page. We'll call this home. Make it a default view. We'll keep this page very simple. File upload. And here we can give it a name. We'll do sample file upload. Maximum upload, we'll say 2. And this is when you add a file, you can it can call you. You can do some stuff. When you remove a file before you upload it, when you add it to this control, when you remove it from this control, you can have 2 flowcharts called. And this is when you push upload. This flowchart will be called, and that's where you will save it. Select multiple files. We'll say no. Show tip is what will show up here. So we'll say something like, we'll do this, upload PDF. And then title, something like that, right? So it looks like this. It's that simple. So let's go fix the translations. We did that in the last webinar.
Chris?
Yeah. Can you hear me, Vijayta?
Yeah, Chris.
Sorry, I thought you called me.
No.
Okay. So there you go. The translation works. So this looks pretty simple, right? Now, let's go do a build. First step is to set up an environment. Sorry. One of the things that I didn't do was I said we needed a database. We need a database to track the file. So we do need to switch on the database. So what I meant by that is, let me explain what I just did just now. When I created the project, I said that I don't need a data model behind this application. This was set to no. Now later on, I decided, no, I want a database behind this project. So that's easy to do. Go to settings. Go to the database folder and then just say yes here. And then this will show up. So it was like this, I made it yes. So let's go back and set the environment. There's one item we have to update here. We'll come back to that. Sorry, my phone. I also want to go back to settings, put it in debug mode. So we don't type, we don't wait for the debug. And also want to extend the trial because I only 0 days because my Graphite is more than 30 days old. Let's go to the build. Our web page with the upload control shows up. Here I can click on this and upload a PDF. There you go, there's a PDF right there. And when I push upload right now, obviously we haven't set up the flow chart to take that file in and save it on the server side, and that's why you see the system error. So there is a document in the Knowledge Center that talks about file uploads, and it gives you, here we go, this document. And it gives you full details on how to upload, how to fix errors, and all of that stuff. Okay, so let's go and continue and finish this project. So the first thing I'm going to do is create an object model where we can store the file so we can reload it. So I'm going to create something called my files. We call it application instead of here. Excuse me, guys. We're going to have something called attachments. And the data type for storing a file is media file. You'll see that in a second. So I'm saying attachments is a list of type media file. Save that. We go back to the screen. And remember I said when you push upload, there'll be a flowchart that's called, that's identified by on upload. So let's go create that flowchart. So here we have created the flowchart, and you can see it automatically sends you the uploaded files. So all we have to do here is create our application. And we're gonna update this list. And you want to use the list management shape and say, I want to merge, add range because I'm adding a list. Media files that came in as input to my application media files, just like regular coding. And then we simply save that application object. What this will do is not only save a record in that application object about our uploaded files, but it also will save the file to the server, right? So now our next question is, okay, great, this file will run, we click it, we add a file, we push upload. Upload then calls this flowchart and sends all the files you're uploading here. Now, and we'll put it in debug mode and we'll look at it. We created our object. It has one property, a list of media files. We took the media files that were sent to us and updated the attachments. And then we saved the media file to the database. Now the file has to be saved. Which folder does this file save to? That is set up in environments. You go to the environments that we set up and we go to parameters, there's this root file path property here. This is where you can set up where the file will be uploaded. Since we are deploying local to this machine, so this is the web server, what I generally do is I also create that folder in inetpub folder, but you can create it anywhere, C temps, anything. So maybe we'll do it in C scratch. We'll call it sample charts. Or we'll call it all uploads. Okay? So all I have to do is paste it here. Click OK. Now let's go and rebuild the project. Recycle this page. We got a system error. Here you see that it says max request length exceeded. Again, when you go to this document, see if it says max request length exceeded. We have to simply update that number to be a max integer. So increase the size and it will do it. So for now, what we'll do is we'll upload a smaller PDF. So we'll download a small PDF and we'll test it out. And we'll worry about the size later. So we'll get one from the internet. There we go. Recycle this page. You're going to get another error because we didn't create the database, but I just wanted to show you. Now it's trying to connect to the database. And so you'll see, again, this error message looks really complex, but this document will help you figure out how to get to the error message. See, we say cannot open database. So you will see cannot open database somewhere here. This is a error message that the server returns. So we didn't want to mess with it and change it and extract that error. But basically, there you go, cannot open database. But in the document, it tells you exactly where in this document you'll find you'll find the error message. So let's go create the database. There you go. As we always do, let's go and look at the database that's been created. I have a lot of database in my machine. And as you can see, all the tables are created. The table that we are talking about is application, which has a list of media files. So let's go recycle the page and then upload that sample file again. And we uploaded the file. We can confirm it by going to C, Scratch, All Uploads. There's the name of your project, and here is the file that we uploaded. And notice how it's in text format. So if I open it, you'll notice that it is converted to base 64 and saved. All that work is done for you in Graphite. If you go to the database, excuse me, and if you look at the application table, you'll see a record that's stored here. And you'll see in this link table, you'll see the record as well. And then if you go to media file, you'll see the file that you uploaded, sample.pdf, and all that stuff. But you know where the file was uploaded because in the environments, you had set up C, Scratch, All Uploads. So if you go back to C, Scratch, All Uploads, you'll see a folder called, but that's the same name as your project, and you'll see the file there. Let's look at this in debug mode. So let's say we go to this flowchart and we switch on debug and also go to settings. Switch on a debug session. Let's say I'll recycle this page and I want to upload that same file again. Now if I push upload, breakpoint has stopped here. If I look at, remember the inputs for this is media files. That's going to contain all the files we put in that control. So if I click on the eyeglasses, I can look at that variable. We uploaded one file. It's sample.pdf. And it says content. Here's that base 64, JVBER. So if we continue and we go to the Windows Explorer, in C, Scratch, All Uploads, you'll see a second file. We open that up. There's that JVBER. So that's how you upload files. Once again, refer to this document. It'll give you full details about how to upload files. One of the right things to do when you're in a production environment is to upload the file and keep it in the database. So that way, as your database is backed up and restored or passed around, your uploaded files also get transferred. SQL Server has an option to store your uploaded files, or any file rather, in something called the file store. This document, the file upload document will show you how to set SQL Server up to upload. Step by step, it will show you how to upload files to SQL Server. So definitely give that a try if you're interested. Let's go create a chart. So let's say in Graphite you wanted to put a chart here. So great, I see charts here. I can just drag and drop, but notice how it doesn't let me add chart there. That's because, again, if you go back to the Knowledge Center, and you go to View Elements, and let's say we say pie chart. Pie chart can only be added to a card or a display area. So what we're going to do here is first add a display area. In the display area, I like to name my variables, my widgets properly. So I call it graph area. And in the graph area, now I can do pie chart, add it. Again, when you add a pie chart, there's no data, so it's going to show up as no data to display during design time. So we'll also call this sample pie graph. Now we can set the height and the width. You can make it 2D, 3D, so let's make it 3D. There's some default color palettes. We'll say show legend. Title will say sample. So let's go do a build and see what happens in the graph. Go back to the browser, recycle this page. As you can see, the graph basically didn't show up because we didn't set the different points. How do you set points to this graph? We can set it up in any flow chart. So since we want to have the chart come up with values, we know that we have to go to the onload view and set the points here. Setting points on a graph is very easy. You just have a flow chart that already does it. So I'm going to call that flow chart. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to do pie graph. Pie graph has a method or flow chart called add point. Here, I'm going to give the name of the chart that we have. In X, I'm going to give it a title. Say, and we'll say 60. And usually you'll be loading this from a database, right? So actually, let's do that. Let's do that. Let's go create a table. We'll call the entity sample data. And we'll have two properties. For just ease, I'll call it text. And then the next one I'll call wins. So then we'll just put some seed data here. Something like that. So, and we'll also have a behavior here. So right now, I want to talk about good coding practices. I could simply use the data lookup shape and say load all the rows from sample data and call this sample rows or something like that, right? But this is a front-end flow chart, anything that starts with on. It's not good to load data from a entity here. So the right thing to do is go create the behavior here. We'll call it load all. We'll put the outputs. We'll return sample data, sample rows, and a list. That's the, I should have made it the output. So that's the output that this flowchart is going to send back. Here I'm going to do a data lookup. Find a list of sample data. Return as sample rows. And we can sort by country just for sample purposes. So that's a data lookup. So that will turn into a SQL statement and execute against the database. So we created a sample. So just to review, we created an object called sample data to put two properties, text and integer. We created some seed data. And then we put one behavior which loads all those rows and returns to whoever calls this. Now going back to our onload view, let's call that flowchart first. And we're going to return that so we can access that output using this keyword. So I'm going to copy it. Then I'm going to do a loop. In this loop, for each item in that returned sample rows, I'm going to call it sample row in context. I like to, anytime I do a loop variable or I'm passing a variable during the screen operation, I like to suffix it with in context. So here is where I will call the flowchart to add each one of those to the pie graph. We call it sample pie graph. X will be sample row in context dot country, and Y will be sample row in context wins. That's it. It's as simple as that. So obviously now we have to compile. We have to update the database because we created a whole new entity which has to become a table. Seed data will be already automatically inserted, and then we'll see what happens to the graph. So let's go back to build, purge all previous builds. And as you notice, there's no sample data table. So let's go to settings and update the database. So here, if I switch this on, it's going to completely recreate the database and get rid of information about the uploads that we did, right? We had a couple uploads. So you just simply want to do update database. Then what it'll do is it'll simply add that table and not mess with the data that you already have in your database. So as you can see, the old data didn't get removed. And if we refresh the table section here, you have your new sample data. And since you had seed data set up in Graphite, all those rows show up here. Okay? So that's without writing any insert statement, any create table statement. You got all the data that came in. So now let's recycle this page. And there's your chart, right? Now let's review what happened here. We'll set a breakpoint on onload view and see what happened. I recycle my page. Graphite starts the breakpoint at onload view. Here, we notice that the output variable here is sample data load all result. That doesn't exist. So when we step over, you'll see that it exists. If you look at the output sample rows, all the rows are here. So that's the return value from that flowchart. Now we're going to loop through each one of these. So here now, we have, so this loop variable is called sample row in context. So it takes the first item in here and names it sample row in context. As you can see, sample row in context is India 60. And now we are passing India and 60 to the sample pie graph. And this flowchart will add that to the graph. So I do that. Now it's come back to the next one. It's Russia 55. And so on. So after all of them are done, we jump to end, we push continue, and there's your chart. With that, let me open it up for questions. Anybody have any questions? We can start now. Or you can type your question in the chat as well. Anyone else? Once again, guys, I just wanted to make sure you know that there is a sample project here that shows all the charts. There's the sample project. You can download it, and you can check out how every chart works. Oh, sorry, I do see a question here. How to clear the graph using page instruction? Good question. So let's do this. That's a very good question. So let's try it out. We'll add another property here. We'll call it I'm typing some random numbers, guys. So what we'll do is we'll add a group, and we'll only load by group. And when we push a button, we'll upload a chart. We'll update the chart with the next set of countries. That was actually a very good question, Malati, I guess. So now let's go add a behavior to load by group, okay? We leave load all the way it is. So we'll add a new one called load by group. Sorry. We'll take input as a group. And we'll return sample rows again, which is a list and output. So we're taking a group, and then we only will send the rows that are related to the group. Pretty easy. Use the data lookup, find a list of sample data rows, name the output sample rows, and now we're going to add a criteria because we're not returning. So this will show you all the columns in the table, as you can see, Vinci. So I'm going to say the column group is equal to the variable that we sent in called group also. Again, let's sort it, not that in a chart you really care. So we start by country, click OK. Sorry, add the end shape. And so that's a very simple flow chart. Now, let's go back to our screen. let's add a button panel. In the button panel, we'll add a button. We call it Group 2 button. Set the title to be Group 2. Now, we don't need to submit any form because there's no form. So I'm going to add a behavior here. And that's the onload view. So now is when we're going to see if we can use a page instruction to upload the chart. First step for me is, we could have made it fancy where we put a field in or drop down here, Group 1, Group 2, and did an on change. But I'll let you guys do that as a practice, okay? So here simply we just put Group 2. And first step is to load all the rows for Group 2. Oh. That's 2 there. And I believe, give me 1 second here. Let me open up that charts and find out how to do it. I use these sample programs quite a bit. So I'm opening up another Graphite project. I'm kind of cheating because I forgot how to do this. It's very easy though. Yeah. Oh, so create a pie graph, add it, and the page. Okay, great. So I know how to do it now. So we've loaded all our rows. So we do the loop again. So before loading all the rows, I want to create a pie graph. It doesn't matter. We could have done it. I'll just call it Group 2 graph. It doesn't matter. Hit that, load all that, do the loop. There are rows. There's your sample row in context. And we do the add point again. But this time, we add it to the pie graph that we just created. So in the loop, it'll add to it. And then once it comes out, we're going to do a page instruction. And we're going to say content. We're going to do replace. We're going to do replace element. And it'll be the sample pie graph. And we're going to replace it. Oh, I'm sorry. We have to do one more thing here. We have to call something called build replace elements. Send that Group 2 graph and it'll return a bunch of view elements. And then that's what we're going to have to use in the page instruction. If you watch this video again, it'll be very clear on how to do it. So the build replacement behavior, return view elements, we add that there. And push end, and that should be good. We'll make one more change here. We'll go to onload view. And instead of load all, let's only load group 1. So that changes the output variable name. So let's go here and make sure we do that. Otherwise, we'll get a build error, obviously. The variable name has changed. Let's go build. I will review the on-click button in a second, as soon as it works. So you have India, Russia. Oh, let me switch off the breakpoint so it doesn't bother us right now. Oh, so we created a new column called group, or we didn't update the database. So let's go do that. Database has been created. So let's recycle the page. And there's your India, Russia, Singapore group 1. I update it. And there's your group 2. Does that answer the question for page instructions? So let's quickly see what happens in debug. So let's go set a breakpoint here. Recycle this page so we can see that the graph is different. So I push this, obviously on click, breakpoint has stopped here. We initialize the list of page. So now we're creating an empty graph. We're not recreating the graph on the screen. And the reason why Graphite does some of the UI stuff in a way where the amount of data that's put on the wire from the server to the client is very, very minimal. So that increases performance and things like that. So we just created a simple graph called group 2 graph, and it's got only the defaults and no points at all. Then we load the group 2. So here's your group 2 result. As you can see, output's going to contain Canada, UK, and the USA, right? Not India, Russia, Singapore, and Sri Lanka. So now we're going to loop through each one, and in each one, we're going to add a point to that graph. So as you can see, the graph that we created starts getting its points. So we'll finish. And there are all your points. Now your graph is ready. Now we have to prepare it to send it to a page instruction. The replace element page instruction only takes a list of view elements. So instead of you having to create an empty view element list and add the graph to it, we just created a behavior that you can simply call where it just initializes view element, adds the graph there. So you just call that flowchart. So what we're doing here is we're sending the graph and it's returning us view elements in that variable, right? So when I step over that, if you go back in, you'll notice that that flowchart's output is view element, but inside that you only have the graph with its points. Now you can call replace element of the graph with those view elements here. Click OK. We step over and then we continue, and your graph has been updated. Hopefully that answers the question for page instruction. Let me know if you guys have any more questions. Yes, absolutely. So there's a concept in Graphite called themes. So if you go to settings, if you go here, there's a lot of different themes. So you saw that theme. Maybe we'll try this theme, Tyler. And if you go recycle the page, you'll see it looks completely different. Right? So what I mean by that is the information, the CSS behind this screen is accessible to you. So using that, you can do whatever you want. But within Graphite itself, if you wanted to change the size of the upload, what I would have done is added a display area. I'm not sure file upload has dimensions here. It doesn't. So what I'm going to do here is I call this upload area. And then I'm going to Control X, and then click on this and paste it here. Now, since I moved it from one place to another, some of these, the onload view and the thing, you have to just simply make edit and change. We'll do that only if you get an error. So anyway, so now you got this here. Here you have dimensions. You can pretty much control this. So if you want to change the width, we can make it 100 and we'll make it 500. You'll notice how, well, let me go back to a bold, go back to the theme so we can see the size clearly. Choose grant. And there's your upload. Now it's smaller. So you can pretty much control the size of your any element by putting it in a display area. Now, having said that, one important thing that you have to consider is responsive web design. If you drop Graphite view elements directly like this, Graphite will take care of RWD. So when you do this, it will automatically do the responsive design. But if you notice Graph didn't properly responsive design, right? Like, look, it's got cut off here. So once you put any element in a display area, it's your responsibility to make sure that that is responsive. So if you go into the properties of any display area, you will have these overrides. And in the overrides, you can see for mobile, we can pretty much go in and say max dimension, max width 500. I'm not a CSS expert, but basically you could set the, you can set the height and the width, and it will it'll make sure that you can recycle it properly. So in that way, you have the control to make it responsive right here in Graphite. So make sure you definitely do that. Do build. Now, if you want granular control, one of the things about Graphite is, this is something that I want you to know. Suppose you have in debug mode, sometimes Graphite loses its connection to its debug processor. So if you get that error, simply push recycle. And there's your resized upload. Now, suppose you want granular control. You can do that as well. So let's go to the project. That's sample charts. That's our project, right? So if you go in here and you go to the library and you go to, there are 3 libraries we used. Each of the library elements will contain the CSS and the theming for those elements. So for PyGraph, you go into the graphs library, you go to view, you go to styles, you go to skins, you see all the different themes there. And if you want to change the way graph looks, you can go into grant which is the theme that we're using right now. Here you can go in here and you can open the CSS and you have complete control of the CSS here. You can change the background, do whatever, and the next time you do a build, it will take all your CSS stuff. Now, when you deploy to production, you have to make sure that you take the CSS and minify it. So that way, for programmers that know CSS, it gives you a low-level control on how to make things look and feel exactly the way you want it. If you look at the Graphite's HTML, right? Graphite generated HTML. By clicking on this pencil, you will see that it follows Flexbox gridding system. So you have complete control of even how the HTML is written by looking at the JavaScript. So we were in view, we went to styles, but if you go into scripts, you'll see all the JavaScript that's needed for each one of those view elements. So you have, it's almost like open source. You can go down to the detail and modify it if you need it. That corresponds to everything in Graphite. You have complete control, and as a programmer, you never lose control just because you're looking at some pretty front end that generates your application. The idea is to make your application development super fast, but if you want more detail, just like old school programming that people still do, handwritten code, you still have that control. In 10 years, 20 years, people won't be hand typing code. We've been doing that since 1950. Things have to change, and products like Graphite are bringing that change. Any more questions? Thanks, Sri. There were pretty good questions that you asked today.
Anything else from your side, please?
Sorry, what was that, Vijayta? I missed.
Yeah, anything else you want to update?
Hello, Chris.
No, that's it for today.
Hello, Chris.
Okay.
Yes.
Brugesh here.
Hey, Bhugesh, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good.
I have one question related to file. Like, if we want to prefetch a file in our system, like we want the user to download that file, whatever it is, like an Excel or a PDF. So,
yeah,
how can that be possible?
Yes. So let's see. There's a sample program for that as well, Bhugesh. So let me show you which one has that. It is media widgets.
Okay.
That will show you how to download the file, okay? So, Bhugesh, we have uploaded 2 files, right, till now? I don't know if you are on the call.
Yeah.
We uploaded 2 files, or let me see. We have 2 files. We'll just pick one and download it, okay? For the sample. So here you have
Sorry
on-click download button.
These are the files which are uploaded through file upload feature.
I'm sorry, what was your question?
I mean, these files, they were uploaded by that file upload feature by that, but
Yes.
yeah. So actually I want to prefetch a means a document in that. Means a file upload won't be done. No one will do that from us.
Oh, you're saying a server already has
Yeah,
PDFs and you want to
yeah.
download it.
Yeah.
I think we have done that, Brigesh. I'll have to get back to you on how to do it.
Okay.
What we'll basically do is create a path, create a virtual path to that folder, and then we'll use the hyperlink to just set the path and it'll just create it. So let me work with you. You have my email, right, Brigesh?
Yeah.
Email
Yes.
me and I'll have one of my developers show you how to do it.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, it's pretty simple.
Okay. Thank you.
That's way easier than downloading a file in Graphite. For a file that you have already uploaded in Graphite, there's a page instruction called download, and here you do file.save for display, and you pass your base64 content here. And I think you also have to say file extension, the extension name, which is PDF in this case or something. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about, but that's in the sample program if you guys wanna see it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Brigesh, your question, just offline, just ping me and I'll make sure you get the answer to your question.
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
A client in Mumbai just implemented that feature, so.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions?
I think we're good, Vijayta, if you're good.
Yeah. Hope all the participants have received the link to the WhatsApp group where they can join and they can interact with you. So if you have not, please go through the chat window. I have mentioned the webinar recordings of previous webinars as well. And also I have mentioned the WhatsApp group link there. Please join the link, join the WhatsApp group. Okay, and you can interact with the speakers. Thank you, please.
Thank you, Vijayta.